Hey, what's up, everyone? This is KJ with Passport Club. So I've been back from Thailand for about a week now, and I said that once I got back, I was going to take the opportunity to sit down, make a video regarding the big four, which in like the manosphere, travel groups, passport bros, which is the Dominican Republic, Brazil, Colombia, and Thailand. So I was actually supposed to knock this out a year and a half ago or so, but COVID was still kind of going strong, and every country wasn't completely open up yet. So what I wanted to do is, as a travel agent, I have people that ask me, my thoughts and my opinions on, different places before they book, and can't really give my opinion on a place if I haven't been there myself. If I haven't seen what there is to do, if I haven't experienced the culture, or at least, seen some of the things that people ask about on a regular basis. So there's a lot of hype, behind those four countries. So I wanted to make sure that I visited those four countries, and then I can actually kind of compare like what I've seen and all that stuff. So in this video, we're going to cover some of the cost of getting there, cost of being there, things to do. Of course, we'll cover the women, what I've seen, what I noticed, et cetera, et cetera. And this is all my opinion. So like some of this will be, an estimate when we're talking about money and cost. I'll speak on my personal experience, but again, this is all my opinion. Feel free to disagree. Everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different, especially depending on what you're going for. So let's go ahead and let's jump into this. Let's start off talking about getting there first. All right. So we talked about the big four. For me personally, Brazil and Thailand are going to be the most expensive. Now, if you haven't watched my videos on how to travel for less or how to travel for free, I'm a big point person. Like, I hustle the point game as best as I possibly can. So it's not too often that I'm paying for flights, but for those that I have booked to go to different locations, I'm aware of like the flight prices. So let's break down. Brazil, Thailand are going to probably be your most expensive coming out of the United States. Your prices for Thailand, I mean, if you're lucky enough to catch a deal on the West Coast, you might be able to get something for like $600-700, possibly. If you're coming from the East Coast or any of the smaller airports, I mean, you're upwards of, depending on when you go, I mean, it could definitely cost you around a couple grand, depending on when you go, how far away the dates are, et cetera, et cetera. The same thing can be given for Brazil, but Brazil, you can generally find good deals if you're flying out of Florida. So if you're flying out of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, not so much Tampa, but the other three, you can generally find some good prices. When I say good prices, maybe $500 or $600 coming out of those cities, those airports. Upwards, you probably can get, as far as what I've booked people on, as much as $1,100-1,200. So if you're going to one of those two places, it is probably going to be to your advantage to make sure you're staying there for at least a week. And when I don't mean 5 days, I mean like a Saturday to Saturday, Saturday to Sunday, or whatever it is. Because you're paying a lot of money. There's no point of going there for a short period of time. So I would at least stay 7-8 days at minimum. If you got the PTO to pull off 2 weeks, 3 weeks, have at it. Of course, with Dominican Republic, Colombia, those are going to be cheaper. Again, flying out of Florida for those places are going to be dirt cheap. If you're going to Dominican Republic and you're flying out of New York, cheaper. I haven't booked too many people from the West Coast going into those places, but I would imagine that it would still be cheaper. Recently, Dominican Republic prices have come down a little bit. I would imagine at max, if you time it right, probably should be around 500-600. Probably shouldn't be any more than that. Colombia, depending on where you're flying into. Colombia, if you're flying into Medellin or Bogota, it should be a little bit cheaper. I've noticed that the Cartagena flights are definitely more expensive to fly into there. I'm not familiar with Cali. Somebody may be able to put in the comments, their opinion on Cali. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Cali and flying in there or booking flights into there. With Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo seems like it's going to always be fairly cheaper. Like the prices seem like it's going to always be fairly reasonable. Punta Cana. Well, Punta Cana, that price can go up and down. Keep in mind, Punta Cana is a resort area. So a lot of people traveling into there are usually traveling in with money and they can afford, more expensive plane tickets. You can also fly into Santiago. And the prices, it's going to be hit or miss. I know Delta sometimes run deals into Santiago, but it's not often. For Colombia and Punta Cana, or Dominican Republic, if you're willing to fly a budget airline, and when I'm speak budget airline, I'm more so talking about Spirit and Frontier, you're probably going to get a better price. Yeah, they're going to tack on the bags, they're going to tack on some other fees and stuff like that, but up front, it's going to seem like it's cheaper. If you're coming out of Florida for Brazil and Colombia, you have a good chance of being able to fly Copa, Avianca, and the prices are pretty good. I like Copa. Copas are pretty comfortable. I've never flown Avianca. And of course, if you're doing Thailand, it depends on who you're flying with. I took Korean Air, which wonderful company. Wonderful staff, was treated very well on that flight. No complaints at all with Korean Air. And they're in alliance with SkyTeam, so with Delta. I think you do have some other options. You can build in a nice little layover. I would build in a nice layover somewhere if you can. That way you get a 2-for-1. But again, the pricing is going to be a little bit more expensive. So I guess what I'm getting at is for people who are going to be a little money conscious, your best bet is probably to go to Colombia or to go to the Dominican Republic. If you have money and the time, then Thailand and Brazil would definitely be great options for the trip. If Colombia and Dominican Republic is your destination, set aside $300 to $600 for your flight if you're planning it. And if Thailand and Brazil, I would probably say set aside anywhere between $800 and $1,500, assuming you time it right with Thailand to book that trip. Cool? All right. So let's talk about accommodations. So let's start off with Thailand first. So Thailand is kind of like any other major city. You can stay at large chain hotels, small chain hotels, or Airbnb. You pretty much have a decent option on where you're going to stay. The prices, of course, is kind of fitting to like a large city. If you choose to stay in something that's higher end, you're going to pay the higher end prices. It is not as bad as like staying in like the United States, New York, or like going to like Paris or England and staying in a higher end. It's not as bad as that. But you're still gonna pay a decent price. Now your Airbnbs are still gonna be cheaper, reasonable price. I think I stayed in a hotel, and my hotel, I believe it was $70 a night, and I stayed in Nana when I was in Bangkok. When I was in Pattaya, I did Airbnb. Airbnb, dirt cheap. I had a view of the ocean. I was maybe a 10 to 15 minute walk away from Walking Street. The street that I was on had several bars, and it was about $50 a night, maybe a little bit more than $50 a night. And there were several places that were like that. So Pattaya, you can stay fairly cheap. All right. Colombia, again, disclosure, I've only been to Medellin, so I can't speak on Cartagena, Cali, Barranquilla, or Bogota. Only can speak on Medellin. So Medellin, I don't recall seeing like prestigious brand hotels there. They had regular, you know, like your normal type hotels. And the price range for Medellin hotels can be anywhere between $50 to $150. Maybe a little bit more if you're going like higher end, but it's definitely going to be based on where it's located at, and you don't want to be located in a horrible place. If you do Airbnb, it's same thing. If you're going to do Airbnb, you need to scout out the area that you're going to be in for safety purposes. I'm not going over safety just yet, but you need to scout out the area that you're going to be in for Airbnbs, because a lot of Airbnbs, they do not have security. And if you do an Airbnb, you're going to want to do one at a building that has a security guard. Same thing with a hotel. And if you do a hotel, depending on what your goals are, okay, we won't say goals. Depending on what your purpose for traveling is, you're going to want to get one that allows guests. If your goal is not to have guests in, then it won't even matter. Just make sure it has good security. But the prices are fairly cheap to stay. Same disclosure on Dominican Republic. I've only been to Santo Domingo and Punta Cana. So if you go to one of those two places, I mean, that's where I'm going to speak from now. I can't talk about Sosúa and I can't talk about Santiago. Santo Domingo, they have bigger hotels. The hotel prices aren't that bad. I mean, I think you can probably be at max $200, you know, and that'd be a nice hotel. Probably going to be in Zona Colonial area or possibly downtown area. Those are probably not going to be the areas necessarily you want to stay in. If you go anywhere else within Santo Domingo area, you can probably find a hotel anywhere between $50 and $150. That'll be decent. If it's 50, I probably wouldn't stay there. If it's around 100, it's probably going to be a decent hotel. If you do an Airbnb, same rules apply that I said for Colombia. Scout out where it's at and how safe it is. Also, I don't necessarily think you have to worry about security as much, but you definitely need to be in an area to where you're not going to step out and like get robbed. If you're in Punta Cana, you can pretty much move around freely there. But here's the thing about Punta Cana, because a lot of people want to go there. Most of the hotels are going to be like real low-end hotels, or the decent hotels are going to be around downtown Punta Cana and Punta Cana Village, closer to the airport, which is fine. There's not a whole lot to do in that area. Punta Cana is like a resort area. It's like the whole eastern part of the island, and this is more of a resort type area. So if you're staying there, you're looking at more so all-inclusive. Honestly, fellas, that's more of a place that you probably would want to go with your wife if you're married, or like a long-term girlfriend, because that way you're at the all-inclusive. If you're going on like a guy's trip or something, do not go to Punta Cana. Don't go to Punta Cana. And if you do go to Punta Cana, do not stay on an all-inclusive resort, because the majority of the all-inclusive resorts, saying a majority, not all, do not allow guests. And from the entry point of the all-inclusive resort, it is a good drive to get to where the resort is. And a lot of those resorts do not allow Uber drivers to enter into the premises. So keep that in mind if you're going to Punta Cana. All right, Brazil. Brazil can be expensive if you're going to stay in the Copacabana or the Ipanema area. Those areas are more affluent. They have nicer places. You got some of the most beautiful views looking out into that ocean, into the beach. that you can imagine. So don't expect for that to be cheap if you want to stay in a nice place. Most of the hotels that are along that strip or those strips are going to be a little bit more expensive. You can catch deals occasionally, but if you think you're going to go down there during their summertime or during Carnival and have it be cheap, it probably will not be cheap. You can do some Airbnbs that are like a block or 2 blocks behind Copacabana and Ipanema, and those can be generally fairly cheap. Keep in mind, a lot of those places will not have security. A lot of them won't. It goes back to, again, safety. Wherever you stay, make sure you do your research on the area. Now, I've only stayed in Rio de Janeiro, so I guess I should have put this disclaimer out there. I have not been to Salvador. I haven't been to any other parts of Brazil outside of Rio. So when I say Brazil, I'm speaking strictly on Rio. All right. With the pricing, I think Copacabana could be high. I don't even know what the limit is going to be on Copacabana or Ipanema as far as hotel goes. I know I stayed there and it was like $100 a night. And I was at a nice hotel on the strip in Copacabana looking out, nice view of the ocean. And it was only $100. So granted, when I went there was last February. So everybody wasn't really, still traveling like that yet. I heard the prices have gone up so far. So if we're talking overall, who has like probably a better deal on accommodations, I would probably go with Bangkok, Thailand, just because of the abundance of options that you do have. And not necessarily really having to worry about safety as much. I think Bangkok will win there. But all the other places, you can still find deals. All right, because since we mentioned safety so much, let's go ahead and let's talk about safety. All right, my rule of thumb for traveling is this. If you don't feel comfortable moving around or going through the bad areas of the city that you currently live in or any other major city, if you do not feel comfortable, if you are the type of person that when you enter into a bad area, you lock your doors or you kind of get tight, you should probably reconsider going to some of these places. If you are flashy, when I say flashy is that you showcase what you have for everybody to see, you're going to probably make yourself a target. Target for guys to snatch you or take something of yours, or for women to target you and try to get you for everything that you may have on you, or whatever. Be mindful. If you don't know how to move in bad areas in your own country, then I wouldn't suggest traveling. I think you should probably learn how to move, like not draw so much attention to yourself and all that stuff. Learn how to blend in with the locals if you can. So speaking of blend in with the locals, let's talk about Thailand. So it's damn near impossible for me to blend in Thailand. But I don't feel like I had the need to. Thailand was some of the nicest people that I've ever come across. People were very polite, very considerate. There wasn't one point in Thailand where I didn't feel safe. There's just not. I mean, Bangkok was great. Pattaya seemed like it was more expats there than anybody else from what I noticed. But safety was never a concern there. Colombia, again, you got to know how to move. You just can't go everywhere, anywhere. And I think in Medellin do have people that look like me. So it's not like I can't necessarily blend in, but you're not going to also like mistake me for a Colombian in Medellin. So like I said, with accommodations there, you need to put yourself in a safe area to where you're safe at night. Like, there's no point of going to sleep and then hearing stuff going on outside. Is there a drugging issue? Yes. That depends on where you're going and who you're talking to. If you're going there for some, like, you know, to have fun and, you know, with somebody else, then you need to be extremely careful. You probably need to go and be at a hotel that is going to check IDs. Either make a copy of the ID. Not to say that's going to prevent anything, because somebody could easily probably get a fake and use a fake there. But it's one of those things you do have to be worried about there. Walking around at night, you need to pay attention to like who's probably watching you. Don't go down dark alleys that you have no business going down. If your Spanish isn't on point, then you probably need to be fairly careful. And, you know, I'm going to talk about language barrier as well. We'll make that next. Dominican Republic. So in Punta Cana, man, I felt safe. Not to say that there's no potential of bad things happening, but it's Punta Cana, it's a resort area. Most of the people there work at the resort, so they're like, you know, building up stuff there. So I don't know. I had several people coming up to me, speaking to me in Spanish because they thought that I was Dominican. I felt fine. Santo Domingo, again, I had people coming up to me speaking in Spanish. And I guess I blended in, and that's, you know, that's fine. People were nice to me. I didn't have a problem with anybody. Again, it may be because they thought that I was from there. But I'm not gonna lie, Santo Domingo reminds me of Chicago. You know, I just say it, I'm not necessarily a fan of Chicago, just because, you know, there's a lot of stuff go down in Chicago. People know Chicago has a reputation. But it's not like Gold Shore Chicago. It's like, you know, South Chicago, to where you kind of have to like watch what you're doing, not play no games. There's certain areas that are bad, and people will be watching you and stuff like that. Like those boys, those kids in Santo Domingo, they have no problem pulling up on you. So that's, to me, it makes it a little bit harder for you to enjoy your trip, you know, when you're in those places. What's next? Brazil. Okay, so Rio de Janeiro. Again, Rio de Janeiro has a reputation. Colombia has a reputation. Santo Domingo has a reputation. I mean, if any of you seen City of God, you kind of know, you have an idea of Rio, right? Like, that's not Rio, but Brazil. Like, it's not 100% Brazil, but you just, when I walk up into the favela, just walking around by myself, hell no. Nah, hell no. Absolutely not. People say don't walk around the street at night like with your phone out. Did I do it? I did do it, because I was trying to find directions somewhere and I was walking around by myself and I had my phone. Nobody tried to like snatch my phone out my hand. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. But again, you're going to put yourself in a situation to where basically just don't make yourself a target, man. Don't make yourself a target. Don't be oblivious to everything around you. Don't be a loud American talking, or a loud European, like just talking extremely loud or anything like that. While I was there, again, man, they thought that I was Brazilian. It's easier for me to blend in there than it probably is for me to blend in a lot of other places. So with the three countries, with Brazil, Colombia, and Dominican Republic, there are some safety issues. Is it something to stop you from traveling? No, not if you know how to move around. If you're not comfortable moving around in your own country in the bad areas, then you probably shouldn't be going to these countries. If you go into these countries being flashy and you get robbed, then that's probably your fault. Not saying you deserve it, but I'm saying it's your fault, because you have to know how to move and not make yourself a target. Out of all these countries, which one do I feel the safest in? Thailand by far. I mean, I think I felt safer in Thailand than I do in the United States. Thailand, by far, I feel is the safest. All right. So let's talk about language barrier. So the language barrier in most of these places, I'm not going to say it's not bad, but it's workable. So like Thailand, do you need to know Thai? No. Is it good to learn some Thai? Yes. Did I do that? No. Is that my fault? Hell yeah. I probably should have learned a few more things before I got there, but the language is just, it's confusing, and it's pronunciation, and pronunciation matters. Because you'll hear them say it in one way, like cup ku cup. Like cup ku cup is thank you. But if you say cup ku ka, they'll think you're a lady boy. So it's like, you know, wasn't trying to, you know, anyway. But there are things that are going to be in English, like your menu, your street signs. Other things will be in English. So it does make it a little bit easier to get around. When you go to the transit station, most of the attendants that I came across in the transit station, they spoke English. Not going to say you're going to be able to hold a full conversation in English with everybody, but for the most part, you should be able to get around. If you go to Dominican Republic, if you go to Colombia, do you need to know Spanish? No. If you're going to stay in the tourist areas. If you're in Punta Cana, you probably don't need to know any Spanish, because chances are you're staying at a resort. You come off that resort, do you need to know some Spanish? I would probably say know some basic Spanish, or be really good at pointing at things. Pull out your Google Translator and use that, and hopefully it gets what you're trying to say right. If you go to like Santo Domingo, if you go probably anywhere for the most part in Colombia, especially like, again, I've only been in Medellin, but I've been outside into like the rural areas as well, and nobody spoke English. So I had to rely on a little bit of Spanish that I do know in order to like navigate, get things, blah, blah, blah. So it's not bad if you're in a tourist area. If you're in Rio de Janeiro and you're staying in Copacabana and you're staying in Ipanema, you probably will not need to know Portuguese. Should you know Portuguese? Yes, you should know Portuguese. You should learn a little bit of it. Shout out to everybody that's bilingual, trilingual, however many languages you speak. You guys thoroughly impress me, and I wish that I could get to your level. It is just something that is not done in the U.S. to where everybody knows at least 2 languages. If you know Spanish and you go to Brazil, don't speak Spanish to them, but it would definitely help you to understand them, because you will hear words that are very similar. For example, saying you're welcome is de nada, right? But saying thank you in Spanish is gracias. You can't say that to somebody in Brazil, because their version of thank you is obrigado. So the words are going to be different. If you know Spanish or a little bit of Spanish already, I would say jump on Duolingo and try to pick up as much Portuguese as you can. And it will help so much. Even if you're blending some of it, that person may still understand you. And as in all countries, they'll appreciate that you're at least making an effort to speak their language and not talking to them in English, or being like, do you speak English? One of those type of things. So which country is better? If you speak Spanish or a little bit of Spanish, the language barrier is going to be better for you in Colombia and Dominican Republic. If you speak a little bit of Spanish, again, or you're thorough in Spanish and you go to Portuguese, you learn a little bit of Portuguese, or not Portuguese, go to Portuguese. If you go to Brazil and you speak a little bit of Spanish, you're going to be in fairly good shape in Brazil. I wish you luck in Thailand. You'll be fine. Yeah, you'll be fine. All right. Next on deck. Let's talk about getting around. I wasn't going to talk about this. And when I say getting around, I don't mean getting around like what we're going to be talking about very soon. But I mean getting around like getting from point A to point B. All right. So Dominican Republic, perfectly fine with Uber. No matter what country I go to, I don't trust taxis. I don't mess with taxis like that because taxis will quote you a price. And they try to change stuff up because there's a language barrier and all of a sudden they don't speak the same language. Anyway, so I don't really mess with taxis like that. You go to Dominican Republic, you should be able to get around with no problems with Uber. Now, when you do Uber, a lot of them are going to give you a fake business card or a piece of paper with their number on it, and they want you to call them later on for you to be able to take them. I personally don't do that. I'll take the paper, I'll throw it away. Just being honest. I don't trust that. So, Uber. Colombia, Uber. Same damn scenario. I don't trust taxis. I know Colombia has a transit system. I know there's a safety issue. I'm not mixing and matching. Uber. Or you stay in an area where you can walk to where you want to go. But again, Uber. In Brazil, same damn situation as far as the safety aspect of it and not trusting taxis. I do not trust taxis. Again, Uber. You can get almost everywhere on Uber. Does Brazil have a transit system? They sure the hell do. Will I get on it? I sure the hell won't. That's just me. That's just how I travel. I'm taking Uber, okay? Thailand. Thailand has a transit system. I got on that transit system. Pretty easy to get around. Now, one thing you do need to know about Thailand is that they have two transit systems. BTS and the other one starts with an M and I cannot remember it. But the BTS is the Sky Train and the other one is underground. The passes that you buy for one does not work on the other one. So you will need to do two passes. Most of the popular places you can get to by BTS. If you are looking to take the train from the airport, you have to take the airport train to the underground train and then the underground train to wherever you're staying. Or if where you're staying is on the BTS line, then you will need to transfer at a certain point to jump on the BTS train and take that. I felt 1,000% safe taking their metro. They do not have Uber there. Say that again. They do not have Uber in Bangkok. They have what's called Bolt, B-O-L-T. And you can pretty much call for like a scooter, a taxi, a Bolt driver, and anything else there. They also have the tuk-tuks. If you don't speak the language, I wouldn't necessarily trust a tuk-tuk because even my tour guide that I had there said a lot of the tuk-tuk drivers, they will charge people that are not from there a crazy amount, or they'll try to scam you in another way. So you can take one at your own risk, not at your own risk, but at the risk of your own money. Transportation wise, I would probably give it up to Thailand. Pattaya, I would give it up to Bangkok. Pattaya, I don't recall seeing any kind of a transit system, but they have plenty of drivers riding around on motorbikes and taxis and stuff like that, and Bolt does work there. So you can use Bolt the same way you use Uber in these other countries. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about the women. Where do we start? Okay, let me start off with this. As you know, I've only been to certain cities. I personally have a type. My type is what I like. I don't care if anybody else likes my type. You have your type. I don't care what your type is. But I'll respect the fact that you like what you like, okay? On top of that, we're gonna talk about two separate things when it comes to the women, okay? Actually, let's talk about three separate things when it comes to the women. Let's talk about You're going there for extracurricular activities. You're going there in like a dating type aspect. And then you're going there for potential to marry. You're looking for somebody to settle down with. Okay. Let's start with Dominican Republic. If you're going to Dominican Republic and you're doing pay for play, I don't necessarily recommend Punta Cana just because I didn't see it out there like that. So I think that my understanding down in Barbaro, there are some pay for play places that you can go to. I just don't see you having the quantity that you may expect in Punta Cana. If you go to Santo Domingo, it's definitely out there and around and about. You can probably definitely find it in the clubs, and you can definitely find it on Tinder, okay? If that's what you're going for. If you're going to find like somebody to date, or if you're going to find somebody to wife, what I perceive, it would be difficult because you're going to have to get through the BS of them, of the reputation that they have there, which is asking for money. And when I say asking for money, it's sometimes it's blatantly like, hey, I need 20 USD, or sometimes it's as the child that I don't have from my second marriage is sick. My tia is in the hospital. Can you send me however much money? Or I don't know what's happening in my life right now. All my utilities were turned off at the same time. It turned off when I gave you my number. I can't explain that. I don't know why that happens. It seems it seems like it happens often. So you have to deal with that. And if you're willing to go through that, if you got the time and the energy to kind of like deal through that in order to find somebody to date, a girlfriend, a potential wife, by all means, brother, do it, because some of those women are fine as hell. Some of them are fine as hell. Going back to pay for play, from my understanding, Sosua is the place to be. I've seen the videos from Sosua. When it comes to like physically appealing, to me, it's hit or miss. I'm not going to tell anybody how to spend their money, but I would imagine that if you wanted to pay for play, you would be paying for the best that you can get. And from the videos I've seen, I just don't necessarily see that all the time. I just don't see it all the time. And if you're going for a wife or a girlfriend, you're going to want somebody that is better off, a career person. And I don't know where you would go to find that in Santo Domingo or Punta Cana or maybe even Santiago, because those people are going to be working during the day. My best advice I can give you if you're looking to meet a girl, to date at least, go to the mall, because you're going to meet somebody while they're working and get to know that person, and that may be your best bet. I'm going to say the same thing about Medellin, because to me, it's the same damn thing. If you're going to pay for somebody that that is that's well outside of your league. And you may be a very confident person and say, nobody's outside of my league, I'm going to play them. And that might be the case. But at least in Medellin, depending on where you go, there is a quality. Now, I know there's a club that you're supposed to be able to go to. I didn't make it to that club for, to see what was in the inventory. So I don't know. If you're going down there for marriage or a girlfriend, do not take your ass to Parque Yeras. Do not go there. There is nothing there for that purpose. That is strictly a candy store. It is literally a candy store with variations of candy in that area. And it is not meant for long-term anything at all. Parque Yaris is a smorgasbord of cavities. And if you get the wrong one, your whole grill is going to be jacked up because you do risk getting drugged there. I'm not saying everyone is going to do that. Everyone is going to have that experience, but that is definitely where it goes back to being very, very, very important on where you choose to stay when you're there. Make sure the hotel has security or the Airbnb has a security guard. As one YouTuber said, you may want to tip that security guard so they are familiar with who you are. You also, it would be good to stay at a place that takes a copy of the ID, not saying that that's going to stop anything because that person could have a fake ID, but it would be good for that person or the people that work the front desk to take a copy of that person's ID and keep it. Even better if the security people or the people that work the front desk does not let that person leave until they check in with you and make sure you're okay. Every place doesn't do that, but it is definitely a good idea if you find a place that do that when you're going there for pay for play. Again, same thing about if you're going there to try to find a wife. You may want to go to the mall. You may want to reach out to one of the dating services there. If you're going there to date, again, the mall. If you speak Spanish, then you may want to go down to Lorales and take your chances there. But be safe. Be safe. Thailand. I personally feel that Thailand is a better place for you to find a wife or a girlfriend. And I say that is because you have a lot of females that are normal women that are looking for somebody, and you're not going to be asked for like money and all this stuff. They're very nice. They're very kind. There is, keep in mind, it's a Buddhist country. So a lot of things are geared towards karma. And what you put out is what you get in return. So you are more likely to find a wife or a girlfriend without going through the BS or having to really worry about that in Thailand, which probably explains why I've seen so many expats in Thailand with their Thai wives, Thai girlfriends, and seeing mixed families the whole time I was there. Now, if you're going there, to kind of, to do your thing, that's probably the safest place to go. You have those that are sitting out on the streets waiting for you to introduce yourself to them. You have those that when you're walking by, all you hear is, "Come here, baby," massage, and some other very choice words about, what they would do with certain body parts. You'll hear that. And you can walk on over and, get your massage and do what you do. You have the bar girls that, they're not looking for just one kind of tip. My point is you have options in Thailand and different places to go for where you can get it and in a more safer environment for you to get it. I understand that they may not always be your type, but I know I saw women there that look like Anne Marie. And if y'all don't know who Anne Marie is, she's a singer from like the early 2000s. I saw a girl who looked like Michelle Wu, and she was tatted. If you don't know who Michelle Wu is, she was Lady Deathstrike in one of the Marvel movies. And one thing that I realized very quickly while I was there, I was never a big thing about like a woman with like tattoos and stuff like that. But like some of the women there, they got like artistic tattoos, like almost a Yakuza style type tattoos on like parts of their body, and like this looks good. And Thailand was very surprising. All right. So the last up is Brazil. Rio to be more exact. I cannot really tell you anything about the pay-for-play biz in Rio because I didn't really see a lot of it. I'm sure it's there. I mean, I know there was clubs, but I didn't really see a lot of it. I will say this though. Rio has some of the most beautiful women per square inch in this world. Hands down, you can't walk 5 to 10 feet without seeing somebody who is at least a 7. Bare minimum 7. When I tell you, I don't know if it's in the water or if it's just like working out all the time or just like what kind of genetics has been embedded in that damn country. Rio is like Miami on steroids. Like, don't get me wrong. There's some plastic parts, but I see more thighs that match. I see more flatter stomachs. I see more 40 and 50-year-old women just fine as hell everywhere. It's yeah, man. I don't know if you're going there for. I mean, personally, I would go there to find a wife. If there is any woman in Rio de Janeiro that is single and actually looking to get married at some point in time in the near future, please be sure to jump in my inbox. I will return the favor and jump back in yours. Thank you. Rio is special. Rio is special. When I say my type is in Rio, oh my God, my type is in Rio de Janeiro. Every freaking where you go. And I'm a natural person. I love natural. I love natural beauty. Like, you know, yeah. And there is just. All right. Anyway. All right. So when it comes to women, personal opinion, Rio is the fucking king. But every other place has beautiful women. Every place has beautiful women. I mean, it's always going to be hit or miss. It's not hit or miss much in Brazil, but every place is going to be hit or miss. So Brazil is my place. If you're just going there, you just really want to like see beautiful women everywhere you go. Every different shade, complexion. If you're going to like try to find a wife now, I would probably say Thailand to find a wife now. If you're going somewhere to just have fun and enjoy it and be safe and not have to worry about stuff and just like let out your 40-year virgin like juices without feeling like you're going to get scammed or worried about being safe, go to Thailand. I would recommend going to Thailand. Everywhere else is just, if you got a thing for that Latin spice, that Latin heat, then, you go to the other places and take your chances and, see how it goes. That's pretty much my thought on all 4 countries. I am now, since I got those knocked out the way, I am going to be venturing out into other countries. I'm going to be hitting Cape Town pretty soon. And then I am going to go back to Colombia. I want to go to Cartagena because I heard the experience in Cartagena was much different than the experience in Medellin. So I'm going to go and find out for myself. If anybody else want to go on these trips, you just want to have somebody there that you're familiar with, that you could kick it with, go out, not necessarily roll solo everywhere. Hit me up. The Cartagena, I already have the details on that. So you can feel free to inbox me on Facebook or on Instagram, and I'll get back to you with the details. Just let me know. Rest of the year, I know for New Year's, the thought is potentially either going to New Zealand, Australia. I am not opposed to going back to Thailand again for New Year's. So if anybody wants to roll with me there, hit me up. I'll give you the details. Outside of that, I'm going to continue to make, videos of my experience in different locations. I don't personally go anywhere for the women, but I do make sure that I try to get information on that and also get that stuff recorded. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much my scoop. Brazil is phenomenal. I do want to go to Salvador, and I want to go to Sao Paulo. And I'll definitely go back to Thailand. Everywhere else is, it's kind of up in the air. But there's some other places that I want to go, and I want to record and get, some details there in those countries. So again, repeating myself now at this point. But if you guys have any questions, just hit me up. Peace.